welcome to another episode of Dad's Old Car. It amazes me how many vintage and classic cars are in New Zealand, and I have to say there are actually thousands and thousands of them. If you go to the car shows, there's always, 300, 400 around the country at each one. But anyway, I have the opportunity to go into a shed the other day and see, well, this bloke's got lots of them, but we chose 3 of them to show you guys. So let's head off to the shed. This is a 1937 Lincoln Ford Zephyr, or Ford Lincoln Zephyr, and it was the top of the range of Ford cars. So it became Ford Deluxe, Ford Mercury, and Ford Lincoln Zephyr. On the side here it's got this teardrop Lincoln Zephyr logo. In here we've got a V12, a very sort of narrow V12. It's got a generator sitting up on the top, air cleaner and everything else that you need. You can see the floor when you look down there, but having a generator sitting on top of the engine like that, I guess if you're going through water, nothing's going to get too wet. So yeah, nice radiators tucked in there, and a couple of horns up under the bonnet. Let's see if they go. I'll push the button and see what happens. Nothing happens. Might have to have the key on, but anyway, like most Fords, this little aeroplane on the top here, you just sort of pull it sideways and it opens up the bonnet. So there you go. Very, very flash car in 1937. In 1948 we saw another Lincoln Zephyr in a shed down in Whakatane, and it too had a V12 in it, but I'm told it's not the same V12 as this one. And it's just beautiful. Inside here they've got a Baker-like steering wheel, a very flash little dash, and yes, he's certainly got an interesting gear stick that goes up under the dashboard rather than coming out of the floor. And lovely upholstery, headlinings, suicide back door, so it's easy to get in and out of the thing. So sitting in the back of this thing, I'm feeling a bit like Lord Muck. Little straps to hang on to, swinging around corners. There's no seat belts, but it has got lovely little armrests, and so sitting in the back of this is absolutely, go to sleep material. Anyway, I'll jump in the driver's seat and we'll see what that's like. So we've got a glove box and ashtray and temperature, fuel, oil, amps, speedo. We've got the light switch, just pulls out there like that, lovely. Throttle, choke, and a cigarette lighter in 1937. Isn't that amazing? And next here we've got the gear stick that doesn't come out of the floor, it comes from underneath the dash, and first, second, third and reverse. I think it'll probably be 3 gears. And another glove box on this side, and the Lincoln Zephyr logo in the middle of the steering wheel. And driving along this with my arm out the window, I would have felt like Lord Muck as well. So there you go. Next door to the 37 Lincoln Zephyr is this 1930 Nash. And Nash was a pretty big car maker back in the day, but I reckon during the 1930s, between 1930 and 1940, some amazing cars and shapes and sizes came onto the market, particularly European ones. But the Nash, it's a very, very big car. It's got a great big straight 8 engine in there to get it going. I love the spare wheel arrangement where they stick it into the mudguard. Side lights, a decent mirror, sort of strung up like the truck ones. That's interesting. And in there is where the driver sat, but I guess if you had a car like this and you owned one, you'd probably sit in the back and enjoy the view and wave to everybody, and you have a driver sitting there doing the driving. A very big car. Well, let's have a look in that back seat. Rolling. And it's a long way back to the, once you're in, then you've got to spin your bum around. And I guess why they have this sort of Jesus bar behind the seat. But sitting back in here, we've got an ashtray by the look of it. A little wider here to wind that window down. There's a little blind as well if you didn't want to sort of be seen. That's amazing. A light in the centre, but on this side we've got what's commonly known as a cigarette lighter. So you sort of light up your cigar and put the thing back in there, and that's where you put all the ash. So smoking in the 1930s was encouraged, but again this side is to wind the window down. It's got a little blind as well, little something to hang on to, something to wind the window down, something to open the door. And there's little vases, I suppose, so you can have lovely fresh flowers as you travel along, make the interior smell very, very nice. There's one there for the co-passenger in the front seat as well. And I think this has been to a wedding because it's got little flowery, little decoration-y bits here and there, like here, to make the car look lovely. So we're sitting in Nash, 1930, and as I said, they just get better and better as the 1930s went through. So you're sitting here with your legs spread right out and try not to go to sleep. What we've got here is a Model T, and absolutely original. And there's no door sort of near the steering wheel. It's actually about halfway along the car. There's the door to get into it. So you've got to climb into the back, move around and get into the steering station in the front. And when you're in there, you've got a window to sort of wind down and a little mirror to see what's coming along. That all opens up, and there's one dial that's measuring the amps, and there's a little light switch to turn those lights on. It's got the three usual pedals in there, but let's have a look. The cranker, obviously to make it go. The original number plate, 170 2.727, and so as I said, the door's in the middle of the cabin, so in order to get into there I've just got to come around through the back seat, through the gap in the middle, and jump into the steering station. Three pedals on the floor like all Model Ts, and there's an amp meter, a key and a switch for the lights, and advance and retard and what have you on the steering wheel. An electric horn, by the look of it. No. But this car is absolutely original, all the way down to having a blind and the back seat, the carpet on the floor. It's just everything about this is as it was coming out of a shed, wherever that was. So this is just a great example of what Ford did back in the olden days. Kiwis are renowned for being innovative. We invented all sorts of things, including the Trekker. Remember the Trekker? And there was also a car called a Chevron, which is a little sports car, and it was made in Onehunga in Auckland. So let's have a look at the Chevron. Well, what we've got here is something really, really unusual, and you tell me, Brian, it's Kiwi.
Yes, these are made in Onehunga by a company called Chevron Engineering. So they're made in the late 80s, early 90s, right up until just the 2000s, and then they dried up. So it's a Chevron, yeah, it's...
Chevron being just the name that they called it in Onehunga. So
yes, that's correct.
So it's an absolute Kiwi car.
Yes, definitely.
Bit like the, what was it, the Trekker? That was
It doesn't have a larder motor in it or larder running gear, but you could say that, yes.
Yeah.
It's type approved for New Zealand,
Oh yes.
so it made registering them a lot easier. And yeah, they are a Kiwi car.
Fiberglass?
So yes, the scuttle panel, bonnet and guards are fiberglass with a 40mm frame with aluminium skin around it.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So incredibly strong, way over engineered. So they last forever.
This is like sitting on the ground, isn't it, really?
Yes.
So I'm not even going to try.
It's a tight space even for me, I'm afraid. Well-rounded people need to take the seats out and sit on the floor.
I love these little windscreens. I mean, do you have a registration sticker or you just have that in a pocket somewhere?
Well, what I normally do once they're fully legal is I'll have a little motorcycle registration holder that holds the Rego and Warrant of Fitness. This one I've just sort of finished. I've only got it back from the upholsterer a couple of weeks ago. We're still waiting to go through compliance with it. So what I do is, because most of these cars have been registered before, since the 80s, and a lot of them have fallen into disrepair, I will pick them up quite cheap, as a wrecked car is, and I'll completely restore them.
Wow.
And so this is my actual second one, and I'm in the process of doing a third one at the moment. And I just love doing up cars, and they're so easy.
Can we have a look at the whatever's running it?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, there it is. What is that? It says Toyota on the top.
Yep, so that's a little 4K motor out of a 1970 Corolla.
So it's bulletproof.
Very much so. Proven over the last 50 years to be reliable.
These little extra bits here, is that something you've made yourself?
Yes, well, I'm a machinist by trade.
Oh yes.
Fitter and turner, so as problems arose, I would figure it out and make up bits and pieces. I had unlimited access to aluminium. The place I worked at the time was a marine super yacht repair place, and so I could just do stuff after work. And so I made all overflow tanks, battery clamps, the remote oil filter system, right down to the boss holding the steering wheel on and the shifter knob, and all of this has been handmade as well.
Did you make the radiator?
No, that one I bought.
Oh, okay.
I can't.
I love the slope. I suppose that's the only way you can get it in there.
Yeah, well, you can see that it just hits, but
okay.
You want to get as much airflow into that radiator to keep everything cool.
No, outstanding. Outstanding.
So, yeah, it's...
So the fuel tank's in the back here, this little,
Yep.
What's that, about 30, 40?
I think it's about a 45 litre tank. Jazz fuel cell, it's all foam, got foam inside it. Unfortunately, you've got to use a dipstick to find out where your fuel level is.
Fair enough. And this magnificent looking arrangement?
Yes, so with the car being satin black, it really doesn't stand out on the road. And so my idea of being squashed by a soccer mum in an SUV is just not a great idea. So that thing is an LED whip aerial, so if you're driving it along the motorways and that, I have it on so you can be seen.
So flat.
Well, it's just glows green. So
does it? Oh,
because
okay.
if you've got, because a lot of cars
the
now,
car's high vis.
yeah, so cars now are a lot bigger, and this is quite small. So if you're behind, say you're in an SUV and you're behind an Audi and a Commodore or something, and you see what you think is a gap, because you can't see this, at least the aerial gives me a bit of a chance.
Sure.
So they're not going to overtake that car and try and fit in a gap that's not there.
Yeah, wow, it's amazing. Yeah. So how long does it take you to get one of these from the time you get it to the time you drive it?
Depending on how far I want to go, you're looking at a half a year to a year.
Oh, okay, that's not bad. We were talking to a bloke before, it took us 15 years to get this one.
Well,
not this, but he was restoring a car.
But that's the hobby. I mean, some people love to go out and fish, some people love to watch a TV. I love to do these.
Sure.
And so instead of sitting at home watching TV, I'll go down to the garage and tinker away. And as long as I'm making small steps forward, they're always steps forward.
Excellent. Can I see you in it?
This is going to be interesting, by all means. So the only way to get into these cars is stand on the seat.
Yep. And then sort of melt yourself down.
Down onto the tunnel, and you go.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Like I say, I'm a little bit high at the moment because the seat's got a bit too much padding
Can
in
you reach the ground with your hand? Oh, look at that.
it. Very easy.
So it looks like it's absolute joy to be buzzing around. How many gears have got? 5?
Yeah, it's a 5-speed.
5, yep.
And yeah, you keep that little 4K spinning up in the high RPM. And yeah, it is an absolute buzz to drive.
So the wind is doing that?
Straight over me.
Yeah, so you're not copping bugs or...
No, and you can adjust these.
Oh, right. Oh, look at
So you can adjust them on the fly as you go.
that. Yeah.
So if you...
So back in the day, a lot of cars, the windscreen, you could open up the windscreen, and trucks
Yep.
as well, and old GMCs and things like that, so you got
Yep.
the wind on your face.
coming up and yeah, that was your air conditioning.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I see nothing's changed, and this is a windscreen wiper, but doesn't require them.
Yes, well, a lot of the cars when they're first built, people do spec them with a big windscreen,
Oh, yeah.
and they have all the aerodynamics of a Volvo or a block of flats, you know, and that's not my idea of fun. So the very first thing I do with them is I'll
Hey Bill,
How you doing?
clear the windscreen off them.
like your program.
Thank you. Yeah,
And so yeah, the first thing you do is you get rid of the windscreen, and I just put these on.
yeah. I always thought something, you know, these little things, and you see them on all sorts of little cars, they're just fabulous.
The thing is, they actually work better than a big windscreen. So with the big windscreen, you're getting the air eddying around it, and you get quite blown about. But with these things, like you say, it just goes straight over the top. At 100k, it's quite pleasant to be behind.
Wow.
Bit more is a bit illegal, so I don't do that.
Yeah, no. I just think this is, for a Kiwi, bit of Kiwi ingenuity, there it all is. There you go, folks. Beautiful. And finally, we get to look at some Studebakers. Studebaker started in 1852. I think they were making wheelbarrows. And in 1901, they started making cars, and their first car was actually an electric car. All the way through to 1966 when the last one was made. So let's join Terry Colville, who's the president of the New Zealand Studebaker Drivers Club, and have a look at some Studebakers. When I was a boy, my grandparents had a car like this. It wasn't a Studebaker, it was a Chev. But a lot of the cars of the 1930s had this shape about them, mudguards and a bonnet and what have you. But this is a 1937 Studebaker, the President, which is top of the range, and spare wheel, little locking nuts to hold the spare wheel in. This is a beautiful example of a 1937 Studebaker. Very nice, very nice. Next door, we've got a 1931 Studebaker. 1931, and I'm pretty sure this would probably be classed as a limousine. The back seat sort of in there, and the time you get in, you've got to sort of shuffle yourself to sit in the back, but we'll have a look at that in a minute. It's got a straight 8 engine in there, and I think they had straight 8s before they had V8s. So the straight 8 was a very popular engine for some of the bigger cars that were around in this period. But the headlights sort of oval shaped, lots and lots of bling. The mirrors sit on top of the spare wheel, so you can see what's coming behind you or backing up. So all in all, an absolute wonderful example of what happened in 1931. This is a 1940 Studebaker, and like the 1937 you saw just a moment ago, this has got that same look of the cars of the period, and it went through the 40s, and in the 50s they started to change, but the general look of these cars, like the Fords and the Chevs, and the Chryslers and other cars, they all had the same look with the mudguards, engine, and looking very nice. This belonged to my mate Michael Cross. It's his family's car. We did an article on this car on the Billy Ho show not long ago, you might remember it. And the family went away in this thing, father driving, mother sitting there, kid in the middle, and a bunch of kids all sitting in the back, all heading off to town. Must have been wonderful back in those days with the dusty roads and all the rest of it. And I'm not sure what the suspension was like, but you know, sort of like we're off to Dunedin. Hooray, here we go. So the 1940 Studebaker. What we've got in front of us here is a Studebaker 1950 convertible. Absolutely stunning car, and I think that lives in the local car museum here in Nelson. So if you're down this way, you can see that car. Absolutely outstanding. And in the background, everybody's having their midday lunch, which was provided by the hotel. Little box of lunch, absolutely delicious. But I just thought I'd show you this bomber, this beautiful convertible bomber here at the Rutherford Hotel. And now we come to 1953. And in 1952, it was the 100-year anniversary of Studebaker, who started in 1852, and they wanted to get the tooling done so they could produce a brand new car in 1952. But they didn't get it done in time. And so what they did is just sort of put a new grille on the bomber model, and so from 1946 to 1952, that was the shape of the Studebaker. In 1953, this is the brand new shape, and you can see the cabin shape. And as we go through the 55 to 57, you'll see the same cabin shape within the cars. This is called a Land Cruiser, which means it's the top of the range. Studebaker Commander Land Cruiser, this is what this is called. And this is the only one in the southern hemisphere, which makes it quite rare. This one came to New Zealand in 1954, having been bought in America in 1953 and then shipped it here. So it says on here 1954, but a 1954 model's got little bars in the grille, whereas the 53 is just a straight grille. So this is a 53, and a wonderful example of 53. It's been done up. It's got a V8 engine in there, and she's a pretty good example of 1953. We come to 1955, and in 1955 they started with the wrap rail windscreen, which a lot of the cars of 55, 56, 57, 58 had. And when you get in these things, there's room for your knees to go underneath the corner of the windscreen. This has got plenty of chrome, so obviously Studebaker are getting a few more dollars, and so they've increased the chrome look on the 55. What happened during the war is all the chrome was hard to get, and so a lot of the cars of that time never had chrome. So coming forward, the chrome's become available, and here it is, lots of it. So this one's a looks like three on the tree, as it were. First, second, third, and reverse was back towards you and up. And it's got an aeroplane on the front, just to give it that bit of zooming along sort of look to it. Yeah, so, yep, looks lovely. This is a lovely colour. I think it might be called salmon.
Salmon, yep.
Yeah. It just suits it down to the ground. 1955, more chrome, big aeroplane on the front. Did they come with aeroplanes on the front? That was standard?
The President Commander came. I think the six-cylinder one was devoid of that.
Oh, right.
But then the speech, they had a different one again. It had a long, narrow one that came down, and also had spares on the guards.
Yeah, wow.
And this is a pillared coupe as against a hardtop.
Oh, okay, yep. So this isn't it's just a standard.
Yeah. So it has a B-pillar.
That back window opens, little flick out, let the smoke out.
For the smokers,
Yeah.
And
quite a tidy car here, isn't it?
it is. And the thing is, the roof line, as you'll see, it goes up. And the original designer, Bob Burke, he said we did that because people wore hats.
Oh.
So they had to have room for the hats in the car.
Yes. Very correct. Yeah, 1955, 1940s. It went to the races
That's right.
Yeah, because the race was just and just a sea of hats.
That's right. Yeah. And suits.
And suits, yeah, everybody got dressed up. Even got dressed up to go to town, you know, just on the bus.
Yeah.
We went to the farmers, had to get dressed up.
Dressed up, yeah.
Even though we were upstairs riding around on the pedal cars and whatever, yeah. Mum went shopping, all lovely, dressed up, lovely. Yeah.
Now, this is a very nice example, original example.
Exactly.
Of 55.
Lovely. This is 2 years on from the 1955 to 1957. And in 1957 they've still got the same sort of cabin shape, an enormous bonnet, a completely different grille. And this one's a Studebaker Champion, which basically means it's got 6 cylinders, and I'm sure it did well in its time. Another thing to note about the 57 is the dashboard. It's got the gauges, and then above the gauges it's got this little, what I call the tape measure speedo, like the Model A's had. All the numbers go round and round and round telling you how fast you're going. So that was one of the features of the 57. So here we have a 1937 Studebaker. Now the special thing about this is they didn't actually make utes in 1937. So the man that owns this has got a 1937 sedan, and he's chopped it down, built the ute back onto the back of it. This has got a V8 in it, which they probably didn't have in 1937 either. So he's custom made this to look absolutely stunning. So good on him. There's some real innovative Kiwis in New Zealand, and this is the sort of thing they can do. Terry, this is a cruiser. Maybe just tell me the difference between a cruiser and a lark.
The Americans, they didn't call the cruiser a lark. It was just purely a cruiser. But the New Zealand assembled lark were called lark cruisers, and they have a nameplate lark on the front left hand and right hand fenders.
Yep.
But the Americans are different. They also had the opening vent windows at the back.
Oh yes. Yep.
Functioning.
Yep.
And the 5 little flutes on the seat pillar.
Is that did that allow air in?
No,
Or
it's
is it
just ornamental.
Ornamental.
And also the bumper bars had the extension pieces on the ends of the guards. Bumper bars,
A couple
I
of
should
little
say.
knobs here to
Yeah.
put it on. Yeah.
And it had a different interior to the New Zealand assembled.
Those seats look relatively comfortable, I
Yeah.
have to say.
They're not factory though. They're aftermarket.
Oh, okay.
So this is a very nice car though. This is a 1963 Gran Turismo. Hawk.
63.
Yeah.
So have they built this to try and sort of boost up the sales, sort of get themselves back on side?
They were going to stop producing the Hawk, the winged Hawk, in 62 they weren't going to have a Hawk. But then they got the designer, Brooke Stevens, he got it and he's changed the hood, changed the roof line.
Yep.
And just went back to the no wings and back to the pure sort of the 50s, and created a different looking car again.
Yep.
From the same start in 53.
Yeah, right. Well, I see it's still got a 53 windscreen.
Yeah. Windscreens are the same from 53 to 64.
Oh, well, there you go. You learn a new thing every day, folks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, awesome. Now we're coming forward to near the end of Studebaker. So this is a 65.
65, yes.
And it's got that flat look that a lot of cars had in the 60s.
60s, yep.
Yeah, and behind us here is the 66, which is the end.
The end. That's the end of the one, yeah.
Yep,
Made in Canada.
made in Canada.
And that's made in Canada too.
Oh, did they have a branching? Oh, I think they did.
Yeah, Hamilton, Ontario was
okay.
they made the last 2 years of production was in Canada.
Wow.
That's why they used the GM 283 Chevy motor.
Oh, okay. So they've gone away from the Studebaker.
Well, they
block.
shut the foundry down once they closed it in South Bend. Yeah.
Yeah. So that must have been a sad day for people who worked there for years and years and years.
Oh, absolutely disastrous for the city
Yeah.
because they employed most of the people.
That's South
Yeah,
Bend.
South Bend, yeah.
Yeah, wow.